A shaky head is a great finesse fishing approach, but how do you fish it? We're going to talk about that. Hello and welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Fish Talk, a show where I have 5 minutes on the timer to discuss all things fishing. If you're new to this series, guess what? It appears every single Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time Zone, so click that red subscribe button below to stay tuned. I just loaded 5 minutes on this timer here, and you know what that means. Boop! It's time to get real. We're talking about shaky heads, and as you know, I am a finesse fisherman through and through. I love throwing natural, lightweight presentations to catch a lot of fish. Shaky heads are an awesome way to catch fish. Now, you won't see a lot of videos on my channel about throwing these, but before I started making videos, I threw these all the time. And I'll get to the reason why I don't throw it as much anymore, but overall, it's still an awesome technique. So let's talk about where I like to fish them personally. And this is one of the best things about it. It's so versatile. So you can fish it in so many different areas. It's not like you can only fish it on offshore structure. You can fish it up shallow in coves. You can fish it on transition banks, so on and so forth. But the one thing that I personally like to look for is more of the hard bottoms. Don't laugh, that's not funny. The gravel, the rocks, the boulders, pulling it through a brush pile, the stumps, so on and so forth. Now, the reason that I'm not fishing it a lot today is that a lot of the lakes that I fish have offshore grass. And so there's other finesse techniques that I tend to have a little bit more confidence in. Drop shots, Ned rigs twitched over the top, Nico rigs popped through. But the shaky head gets bogged down in the grass a little bit more so than those presentations, so I just don't throw it as much. Now again, back when I lived in Kansas, in the Midwest, and even in Arkansas, I threw these a lot more because there was a lot more rock and brush piles and I could feel it through, and I caught a whole pile of fish on it. I've caught some really good fish on it as well. But how do I fish it? And you know what? I just kind of mentioned the fact that I'm pulling it through some of that stuff, but I think when people hear the name shaky head, they ultimately just start thinking like you gotta shake it like you're on the dance floor in some wedding and you're, feeling yourself. You don't gotta shake it that much. In my opinion, my favorite way to fish this thing is to just slow drag it, almost like a finesse jig or a football jig. Just slow drag it. But here's the technique that people, if they want to be good at finesse fishing, here's what you got to remember. 1, patience, and 2, it's okay to not do anything. It's okay to dead stick. And a shaky head is ultimately a great bait to dead stick. So what I'll do is I'll drag it lightly, and then if I come up on something, I can feel it kind of getting stuck on something, I will kind of shake it over the top, or I'll let it sit for a little while, or I'll shake it over the top and then let it sit for a while, and then a lot of times you'll get bit on the pause. Now, when it comes to a bite, what I like to do is you'll feel that tap, you reel down your slack a little bit, and you'll hammer them, because obviously you have your hook buried in your plastic here, and so you're gonna have to hit them pretty hard, whether you're throwing it on spinning or casting. That actually brings me to my next point, the versatility of shaky heads. The versatility of shaky heads is second to none. What other bait is there that you can throw like a 16th ounce all the way up to a 1/2 ounce? There's not very many, but that's the case with shaky heads. You can throw really, really small jig heads and be as finesse gets, or you can really be a power finesse, as they like to call it. And that is like a 1/2 ounce shaky head with a 10-inch worm way offshore. And that's a pretty big technique. It's not really finesse fishing, but it still is the same principle. And that's what's cool about it. And me personally, if I am gonna throw a shaky head in today's world, a lot of times I am throwing it on a casting rod, and I'm throwing more like a 1/4 ounce jig and a little bit bigger worm, and I'm power finesse fishing and I'm trying to catch a little bit bigger fish. But that's what's so great about it. And again, you got to set the hook pretty hard and so on and so forth. But what I look for in a jig is really you just got to have that long shank hook. I like to have a good keeper. A lot of times it's like a screw lock type keeper that's going to screw into my plastic, and that way you don't burn through a lot of plastics. And so that's what I kind of look for. And then obviously if I'm throwing it on a bigger jig, I want a beefier hook. Something's got a little bit thicker gauge. Whereas if I'm going to throw it on spinning gear, something with a little thinner wire hook to where I don't have to set the hook so hard, and I'm going to penetrate them with a little bit less power on the backswing. So that's kind of what I look for. And then other than that, it's kind of like a ball head or a football jig head type profile, and that way it can pull over rock effectively. The football tends to be a little bit on the bigger ones that I'm throwing on offshore rock, whereas like a ball head is a little bit more versatile, and you could probably pull it through a little bit more grass effectively. But overall, that's all I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about how versatile and how effective shaky heads are. And I don't talk about it a lot on my channel, but I wanted to bring it back up to you guys, because if you have these types of situations where you could be throwing these, I would definitely recommend it. You'll catch a lot of fish, and you can actually catch some really big fish. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any suggestions. Holy cannoli, holy cannoli. Whew, good. We avoided the alarm. Yes. Overall, what are your thoughts? Do you guys throw a shaky head today? Do you want to start throwing a shaky head? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, if you have any more suggestions for an episode of 5 Minute Fish Talk, don't forget to drop a comment below, because I love your ideas and I want to keep making these things as long as I can. Let's do this thing. So I hope you guys throw a shaky head this weekend and catch a big old piggy. But last but not least, you know what I'm going to say, right? Have yourself a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch you next time.